Hello there. I didn't notice you.
Didn't see you coming.
Didn't see you there. Oh my goodness. How have you been here long? I just walked straight past you. Didn't even notice.
How you doing, mate?
I'm just doing theatre. Hey, Joe.
Theatre of mind.
Dude, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad.
Fuck, man. I have burnt myself so badly. Like, you probably won't see it. But I was getting something out of the oven tonight, and I lifted up, and right here, this part of it here, it's that long, so it's like a 2 to 3 centimeters long. Went onto the element on the top of the oven that was on.
Oh yeah,
And
you'll feel that.
Yeah, I'm so badly burnt. Hands straight in the water for 10-15 minutes, but that's sort of been my my evening my evening taken up imagining the skin peeling off and what's going to happen to it. But
Just
anyway,
delicious.
How are you, man? My little Antifa brother there, all dressed up, ready to go and protest someone. I don't know. Is that right?
No, not tonight. No, I'm a good boy and I stay in my house.
Yeah.
And Lee Vandeviss's election signs have nothing to be afraid of. It is all good.
I remember doing a series of podcasts with Jeremy Elwood back in the day, the Slightly Correct Political show we did. And we sort of actually ran a competition of people defacing signs and got them to send us images. And we didn't really think, well, I didn't really think about afterwards how much trouble we possibly could have gotten into legally for inciting people to deface hoardings. But it was funny for a season. I don't know if I do it again now, but yeah, there was a real moment for the general election in 2000 and whatever it was, 7 or 8, where there was some real creativity. And I think actually Jacinda Ardern on her Facebook page still has, as her personal page, still has the image of defaced image from one of her hoardings from I think that season, because it's like okay, this sounds silly, but you know how ram raids are kind of the thing of the moment? That seemed to be defacing hoardings, but doing it quite cleverly. And it was when Colin Craig was around, and there were some fucking beauties, man. Yeah. Anyway,
I did see one locally. I think Aaron Hawkins shared it around. I liked it purely because of its absolute pissiness.
yeah.
Somebody had unscrewed his hoarding while leaving the frame up, turned it around, and screwed it back on again. So yeah, there was just no marketing image. It was just the back of it, the plain white back of it, still on its hoarding.
Right.
I love that. You could have just kicked it over. You could have, I don't know, given him a mustache or something. But no, you got out the power tools, and you went the extra mile.
So it's worth, you put a bit of effort in. So if you're going to put the effort in, I'm sorry, I'm just distracted looking through Jacinda Ardern's photos. It's not, I was wrong about that. It wasn't that. It was a defaced one, but it wasn't a defaced hoarding. So her profile pic at the moment is, I'll bring it up, shall I? Is that.
I thought she had that as her profile image for a while. I remember.
Yeah. So that's what's her profile pic now. So yeah, there you go. I'm a little bit about that. I actually think that you can have a little bit of silliness with hoardings and rip into it and make a bit of fun. I know it must be annoying for the candidates, but also I think, I don't know, if that, like, there's a difference between just absolutely ruining something and actually making it better. Like, if it's clever, I can support it unofficially. Politically, we says I may or may not have smashed a whole new conservative sign last night. It felt good though, hypothetically. So there you go. Hey, thanks for joining us all tonight. Thanks for jumping on board. Hey, Stephen, how are you? We are we're here with you again tonight. We have got a bit of a show for you, but just before we get going, wanted to mention as well that due to popular demand, we have our Patreon up and running now. It's only just started last night. We've got a half dozen people or so who have signed up. So thanks for you guys who have. We've got 6 levels of Patreon, from $5 a month being a coffee runner. Do you know that? See, it's like the producers. Coffee runner, $5 a month. Everyone who's a coffee runner as well goes into the draw for a quarterly coffee giveaway prize we're going to do. You can be a patron, you can be a super patron, or a producer, or a senior producer, or an executive producer. These T-shirts here. We've got the black on black t-shirt. Those ones there, see with the face on it. They're available when you get up to the senior producer level. When you're at the producer level, I haven't got any hats with me, but they're up over there. There's some hats and stuff as well. Executive producer. We're going to be holding kind of private group chats as well that people can join in when you get to certain levels. And yeah, just what we do. I think it's one of the things we've been trying to do this for a long time, and we've got to a point where, there's fees that go along with it. So we're going to we're throwing it out there. If you guys are enjoying it and want to support us, you're more than welcome. If you're not as well, no big deal. But if you do want to get behind us and help what we're doing, sort of the only, I think at least, correct me if I'm wrong, share some links to other ones. I'm happy to share them. But sort of the only daily sort of news conversation, news content, especially put out with a blatant and obvious left bias. I mean, yes, I can think of numerous ones around New Zealand from the right, and internationally there's a lot of them, but within New Zealand, I don't know if there's anyone else who's sort of doing what we're doing. So if you want to help us and get it going and keep it rocking, then yeah, Patreon's available for you. It's Big Hairy News on Patreon, and we'd love to have you on board. We'll probably do more and more things as we go along, and some stage membership will have other privileges. Like we might put the live, not like anytime soon, but I imagine that the live stream might go behind a membership wall, and then for people who aren't members can get the footage, but on demand afterwards or something. Well, I don't know. We'll figure it out. We're all learning as we're going, and we've actually got someone as well who's started to build us a website today as well. So we've got a website coming up as well, which is going to be a bit of fun. Yeah, and that's what we're about. What are we about tonight? Well, we are about Christopher Luxon a little bit tonight.
Yeah,
I believe
he had a nightmare this morning.
Are you talking about the News Hub?
No, I'm talking about Radio New Zealand.
Okay, I don't have that. So if you've got something you want to throw into the pot,
okay, I might
grab it up
for the hunt on that one.
Grab it up. You can mute yourself and queue up some stuff while I'm playing some other video. More than welcome to. I act it now, and I'm not just being a lefty loon, and trying to like smash everything on the center right or right. But I really, honestly, truly believe that Christopher Luxon is actively spreading disinformation about truancy. I really do believe that. And we actually talked about this last week, but I kind of came to the conclusion today, if he's going to keep fucking spreading this disinformation, then I'm going to keep talking about it. Maybe you're new here tonight. Maybe you're, I just see Paul's written Susie Fergusson. Susie Fergusson is nailing everybody at the moment, isn't she? Maybe you're new here and you didn't hear what we talked about last week. I'm going to expand upon it a little bit as well. But I'm politicians in general, they'll get a talking point and they'll hammer it. I honestly believe, and remember, the difference between misinformation and disinformation is actively spreading information that you know to be false and it could be harmful. I believe he is actively spreading information he knows to be false around attendance at school. Probably around heaps of other things as well, but that's the example that popped up to me today that I want to actually get into. We are going to talk a little bit about Mr. Brian Tamaki, and he's got his knickers in his twist a bit at the moment that National doesn't want to play with him.
Oh,
yeah, but also thanks to Brian Tamaki, we know a bit more now about his upcoming trial and the number of witnesses that he has coming up against him. He, of course, sees that as a sign from the Lord that he's doing the right thing because all these people are coming against him. I guess most of us would see it as, oh, shit, there are a lot of witnesses against me. Maybe that means there's a lot of evidence against me for whatever crimes I'm being accused of or situation that's coming up for me. So we'll have a look at that. And also, sometimes when we talk about situations that have a really horrible, sad, starting point, it always feels a bit awkward. We all know Sophie Elliott, the name Sophie Elliott, especially those of us in Dunedin about Otago. There has been a call by her father today to follow on by, I think Victoria University has made a rule about, and you guys think about this now, and we'll look for your views later on, because there's been a call made by her dad that, and you can understand why, God, you can understand why, that students and staff at universities should not be allowed, it should be banned that they have relationships. Now, my initial reaction is, well, of course, but then you take a step backwards and you go, hang on, well, there's 30-year-old university students and there's, there's probably actually already married couples at university, one who's a student and one who's so I know I don't want to be pedantic about it, because the idea has come from people who are not in a position of power basically being abused by people who are in a position of power. We support that 100% without question. But the devil in these things is always in the detail. And this is an idea that's been thrown out today. And I don't really want to debate it per se, but I think we should talk about it. I think we should talk about the idea, what it means, how it could work to keep vulnerable people safe and how it could be put in place. So we're going to have a look at that as well. That might be towards the end of the hour. So it's not really a controversial topic, but it's a more than a nuanced topic. But because it comes from such a horrific story, it feels like we don't want to do a disservice or any disrespect, especially to Sophie Elliott and her family. So we're going to tread carefully, but I do want to talk about it, so we will. The actual idea as well. Well, have you got stuff? I mean, I'm going to start with News Hub this morning and Christopher Luxon. Do you want me to start there while you're doing? This is how we roll in the show. We bring new things in, or do you know exactly what you're going to do and where you're going to do it, or do you want to see where I go first?
Well, you go ahead. I'm going to mute myself. There's this morning report thing is 8.5 minutes, so I might sift through that and try and find what I heard.
Okay.
Or even see if anyone's clipped it on Twitter.
So, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll already have seen part of the conversation that we're going to have tonight. I laugh every time I watch that thing that I just made. I know you saw it, Chewy, but that clip is hilarious, especially Paul Goldsmith, who just kind of pops up from behind and says something and then goes back like, see, National Daddy, I agree with you. I'm saying what you're saying. There was a conversation between the AM show and Christopher Luxon this morning about youth offenders, and the ACT Party want to bring ankle bracelets into youth offenders, basically 11 to 14-year-olds wearing ankle bracelets. And so this doesn't mean home detention, whilst that does come up in this conversation. This means kids going to school, intermediate age kids going to school wearing ankle bracelets. That's what ACT wants. Christopher Luxon was asked about that this morning on the AM show. That's where we pick up the conversation.
I haven't seen the detail of it, but we wouldn't support that. What we are saying is, look, the government's got the balance all wrong here. We do need serious offences for, serious prosecutions for serious offenders. And the second thing we need is we need to make sure that we're actually supporting the victims. And the victims here are those shop owners, and they deserve to feel safe in their businesses and their communities, and they're not.
But you say Labor is not being tough on crime. You wouldn't go as far as ankle bracelets for these young offenders. What would you do for those under the age of 16 to encourage?
Now, this is a very good point, right? Now, the opposition is in a position where they either can say anything or they don't have to say anything, because they're not going to be forced to make policy until they would be a government, and they're not the ones making policy, so they don't need to say anything. However, what Mr. Luxon is doing at the moment with this is he's saying Labor's not doing enough, and now he's saying, no, that's too far for us for ACT. And when being challenged on where are you then, to me it kind of comes like, well, there's one answer, but the one answer kind of screams in the face of the things that he's saying, which is we don't have the tools in place at the moment. So ACT is too far, Labor's not far enough, we're in the middle, so what are you going to do then? And there's actually no real answers that come from him.
Increase the penalties on them.
Well, the reality is the system today already has a series of escalating, actions that you can take, and they range from family conferences, of which we were doing way too many, frankly, right through to residential youth facilities for serious offenders.
So what he's just said is the system does have the answers right now. So it's really a confusing message, because he's going, Labor's not going far enough. He's going, the system's not working. ACT is going too far. And then his next answer is, the system has in place already what we need. Well, so hang on. If the system has in place already what we need and ACT is too far, what are you saying? Because I think one of the things he's trying to say is he's holding, for example, the courts, the Labor Party responsible for what the courts are deciding and what the judges are imposing in their sentences. Because he's now actively saying we have the tools we need in the system now. At the same time, he's saying the system now is not working. At the same time, he's saying ACT is too far away. We don't want to go that far. So it's a real menagerie of mixed messaging. And as I said, being a little bit gracious to him, he's allowed to do that because he's in opposition. But if we already have the tools, but the system's not working yet, but we've got the tools, then what exactly are you saying, Mr. Luxon?
The serious offending end is where we need to see much a stronger action from the government, because that's the piece that's actually driving 25% of all the ram raids. And so that's our question is, there's nothing here for serious offenders. There's nothing here in terms of support of victims. And what we saw yesterday was just re-announcements of programs that already exist today.
Now, if what he's saying is the things are in place to be able to be used, but they're not being used, is that, I ask you, a Labour Party government issue? Is it a justice system issue? Who is the person or the people or the group that starts implementing harsher penalties? So if what he's saying, let's use an example. If you could get a $500 ticket for a fine for doing something, but you're only being given out $100 fines at the moment, like that's what the system's doing. And he's saying, well, they should be $500 fines. And he's not saying fines, but I'm using an example of escalating consequence. Then who is the responsibility to award that $500 fine? Is it Jacinda on the 9th floor? Or is it someone else? Now, that's actually a question for me. I don't know how much direction the courts take from the ministry or how that works, but I don't know necessarily if it's a government problem. If the tools are already in place to deal with them, they're just not being dealt with.
Would you support home detention?
Well, look, there are components from family conferences to home detention to community services to residential youth facilities. We should be using all of the tools and getting the appropriate consequence for the response.
Now, let me say this again. At the start, he said family conferences, of which there's too many. You just heard the sentence. He used the range of things, and one of the examples he gave of the tools we had were family conferences. So hang on, Mr. Luxon. What is the correct number, according to UN National, of family conferences that's going to help? At the moment, it's too many, but you acknowledge it's a tool to be used. Can I please have some clarity from you? Can we, the public, have some clarity from you that if it's a tool to be used, as you've just acknowledged, but there's currently too many, what? You'd like to see 10% less, 20% less? What is it? So there's this mixed messaging again. I mean, I'd rather he come out and say, take a position like family conferences are crap, let's get rid of them all. But to say there's too many of them, but we should use them, what are you saying? And we often talk about the optics and the narrative within politics. And the optics here are, I don't understand what you're saying. It sounds like you're just fishing for words and throwing shit against the wall and see what's going to stick. And it's confusing.
That we've got.
Because home detention would involve some kind of electronic monitoring, which essentially would be ankle bracelets.
Yeah, look, I think there's other things that we need to be focusing on. I mean, the big thing that I'm really concerned about, and I just don't think New Zealand has registered, is that 55% of our kids are not going to school today. 100,000 kids in this country are chronically
That's a big damn lie.
That is a big linkage into ram raids, and one of the big causes for why we're seeing what we're seeing. We've got a minister, fortunately, who's also the Minister of Police, is also the Minister of Education. And I keep saying he should probably have a talk with himself to work out how we actually fix truancy, because that's one of the major drivers here.
Should point out that truancy, in terms of regularly attending school, is attending for 9 days out of 10. In terms of
and chronic truancies, 7 days out of 10.
Note this. When he made the call for 55% of people away, he did not say chronic truancy, because that's not the stat. Right? I've got the stats from the ministry. The stat is not chronic truancy. So Melissa has just said it's 1 day out of 10. And Mr. Luxon has come back and said, yeah, but chronic truancy is 3 days out of 10, which is not the stat that he just gave. So he's now giving information out, which is not actually the 55% he's talking about. It's a different percentage. And I'll show you. I have the numbers.
But all I just say to you is they are not statistics that a developed country should be very proud about. And they wouldn't be statistics that would be acceptable in other small advanced economies around the world either.
All right. Take a breath. Take a breath. I think about Hamilton when I say that now. Take a breath. So we showed this last week. We're showing this again today with a few more add-ons to it, because if he's going to keep lying, we're going to keep reminding. This is the stat that Mr. Luxon is talking about. And I've actually got the numbers here. Let me show you. Look, this is the stat. 2022 term number 1. 46.1%, if you're looking at the screen, of students attend more than 90%. So it's the 1 day in 10. So when he said, but it's 3 in 10, that's not the stat here. 3 in 10 is actually here. Students attending for more than 70% is actually 13%, right? So that's not the stat that's got to do with 55% attending. So we're clear to start with, right? I have this stat. We're going to come back to this in a minute. So, term 1 of this year, Regular student attendance defined by the Ministry of Education as away for no more than 10% of available half days. And as we said last time, that's 1 day every 2 weeks, right? Plumbed new depths in term 1 with 46.1% of students nationwide meeting the benchmark, the worst term 1 performance in the COVID era. Now, the question we always need to ask is why? Absences due to COVID-19 combined with the early onset of winter illnesses resulted in record high absences for short-term illnesses and medical reasons in term 1. Now, in term 1, we were still under the 7 days isolation if you are a close contact of COVID. So that means me and Chewy live in different houses, or at least that's what we tell the public, so you don't make any rumors about us. If me and Chewy went out and had a beer, and then we were together for an hour in the same room, and one of us came down with COVID, the other one under the term 1 rules would then have to isolate for 7 days. So it's not like it is now, which is the household contacts. It's everyone in close contact. That finished at the end of February. Now, that's about 5 weeks into term 1. So for half of term 1, the rules were every single person who comes into contact with COVID for more than 15 minutes needs to isolate for 7 days. For the second half, it was household contacts only. So that has skewed the numbers significantly as well. This is what the ministry said of the absences in term 1. We have seen absences due to parental family concerns that attendance at school is unsafe because of the risk of contracting COVID-19. Now, Mr. Luxon is calling for parental responsibility right now. He's making it actively clear. My children, my 2 school-age children, were out of school in term 1 for about 4 or 5 weeks because of this. So what Mr. Luxon is actively telling me is parental responsibility, parental responsibility, parental responsibility. So parents have made decisions in term 1 to keep their kids out of school and be remote. And that's the reason the numbers were down. So doesn't that therefore mean he's criticizing my decisions as a parent? Because that's my child will be one of these children, both of my children, because we as parents chose to keep both of them out for their safety and for the safety of the community around them. Regional feedback indicates that as well as the impacts of studying at home, if they are close contacts, so that was the first half of the term, or unwell, there may be impact on parents of COVID fatigue and of attendance seeming less important. Right, that's part 1. Chewy, do you want to, we won't go to your RNZ thing yet because there's part 2 coming up shortly. Do you want to comment on any of that yet? What I've just done is explained why in term 1, there was a 55% regular attendance and a 46% non-regular attendance, which means more they were off for more than 1 day a fortnight.
I mean, I think anybody would realize that term 1 absences were going to be a lot, right? But here we are 6 months later, and Luxon can just hammer that and link them together. Ram raids are up. So's truancy. That's what I'm going to talk about. And you guys can just draw a direct correlation between those 2 things. Ram raids are a huge blight on this country. They're only happening in Auckland, And
the point you're making is right, because he's using present tense about the truancy. Whereas we're now, for those who don't have children at school or don't know, we're getting towards the end of term 3. So he's using the term 1 data in the present tense as a talking point, and I believe he knows it's not the case, which is why, in my humble opinion and my honest held belief, is he is actively spreading disinformation.
The other thing I was going to say, and this again plays into Luxon being a rank amateur at this. He has had no experience in any of the things that he's talking about. He hasn't had a justice portfolio. He hasn't had an education portfolio. He's just there to hammer these talking points. And it is Labor is soft on crime because they always are. And Labor is bad on the economy because they always are. And this is the same thing that National has. They've dusted out the old drum and they're just going to bang that all the way to the election day. It's important that the journalists and people like us just push back against this shit because there's so many people that'll go, oh, yep, preconceived biases. I agree.
Let's now get to the current information we have, right? Because remember, Christopher Luxon is saying 46%, well, he's saying 55% of kids are attending school. So what it means is, according to the data I just showed you, which I'll bring up again, which is the actual core data, as you can see, 46.1% are away, right? But there is new data, and I'll show it to you. RNZ talked about it last week. Principals had worried August, this is from last week, principals had worried August would be the worst period for winter illnesses, but Education Ministry figures show attendance averaged 82.5% for the first 4 weeks of the current school term, an improvement on 79% for the last 5 weeks of the second term. So that means the last 9 weeks of school average about 80% attendance. Not 55, that means about 20% away. So those numbers are current, they're new, they're today. This is one thing that I was a bit annoyed, a little bit of a tangent here, a little bit annoyed about this point from the RNZ report as well, Chewy, because you know what we've been saying about masks and stuff in schools. This is what they say.
Yeah.
So this is from the was it from the ministry, or this might be from it might be from the Canterbury Primary Principals Association, maybe, looks like. Probably is, yeah. It says this: illnesses among staff are still high. Among students, not quite so much. We've got 90% of our kids here this morning, and that's really good. And that's better than it was through COVID. We were down to about 76 to 80%. Wearing face masks has made a real difference in preventing the spread of respiratory illnesses in classrooms, she said.
But hang on.
No. So let's just be fair and say Labor government, like we said, as soon as we went into orange, fucked up significantly, because as soon as they took away the mandatory wearing of masks in schools, which they did under orange, we got hit really badly again. So let's say it again. The principal in question here is saying this: wearing face masks had made a real difference in preventing the spread of respiratory illnesses in the classrooms. Now, remove classroom and say your workplace, or, I mean, buses are supposed to have masks on, or the pub watching the rugby. Wearing face masks makes a real difference. Sorry, Cherry, where you go?
I was just going to say that people on Telegram tell me that masks don't do anything.
Yeah, I'd like to see those people go and get an operation, like a heart operation, and be happy that their doctor doesn't wear a mask when they're doing that operation. If not,
I'd love personally, when I'm having abdominal surgery, I like my surgeon to just full face sneeze right into my open abdomen. It's good. I'll just shake it off.
Well, if you're going to follow one of the Dunedin Mayoralty candidates, that'll be fine, because he doesn't believe in viruses at all. That's a little side. That's a side note, though. Hey, now I want to go back to this AM show. So look, if he keeps talking about it, if he keeps using that number of 46% truancy or 55% attendance, we're going to keep talking about it. And I'm sorry if we end up sounding like a broken record. You guys need to share it. You are the guys that need to get this out there. And while you're there, sign up to our Patreon. Okay, so the other thing I was going to say, which I thought was shocking this morning, is Christopher Luxon, and I think he's trying to court the Destiny Church audience and make sure that they don't get through, has started this whole thing about parents and this and parents and that and parents and the other and stuff. It sounded to me a bit like he wanted to come for, students' feminine hygiene products. Like, he's criticizing free things. He's basically saying, parents don't have to take as much responsibility as they once did. I mean, they get things like free tampons at schools. And I'm just like, really?
Monstrous.
Are you coming for the tampons now, Mr. Luxon? Have a listen to this 10-second clip, right?
I think it's really difficult, but all I think is, as parents, you just have to make the call and say, like truancy, for example, today, we now have free lunches, free breakfasts, free period products, support with uniforms. And in many cases, it's about, waking up and getting the kids to school and having that expectation on them.
So free period products, I mean, so I guess if that's a criticism, I guess National's coming for your tampons, ladies. So just beware if you're in school. No more free tampons. There you go. These are your next
like,
flavor.
it's just that makes me so. it's so mean-minded by every metric. The analysis on the free lunch program and that sort of thing was that it was making a huge amount of difference in some very low decile schools.
Yeah, of course.
The research of the free period products was showing that the amount of girls that weren't coming to school because of lack of those, so he's saying that he wants kids in school, but then taking away things that could keep them there.
Yeah.
And
it's let's wrap up this conversation of this part of it. Obviously, we're going to come to you, and I've got one more little clip to play people, which I'm already smiling about. Paul Goldsmith makes me laugh every single time. Right. And he comes back to this idea of, he acknowledges that we already have the consequences required. The system isn't broken, is basically what he's saying. And then he says on other times, the system is broken.
Look, I mean, I think we've got to ask questions of anything that works. But all I'm saying is today we already have a set of escalating consequences in the system that we're just not using.
So the system's there. It's already there. And you probably would have heard if you follow me on Twitter. If you don't, you should, because it's a fantastic place to be. I put this clip up today, and I'll bring it in to show you guys what it is. I put it up about an hour or so ago. See if, and I think I tweeted it out by saying, see if you can pick up on National's buzzwords. It's subtle, but see if you can pick up on it. This was a speech or a media scrum that Christopher Luxon had 2 weekends ago, and this is a truncated version of 9 minutes of him speaking. So all of this was said in 9 minutes. At that point of his 22-minute speech, I was prepared to commit suicide, so I thought I better stop here for my own mental health. But this is all from 9 minutes, right? That's it, just 9 minutes. Mr. Luxon for you. And as I said, I always laugh when Paul Goldsmith comes out, because it's like, me too, boss. It's sorry, I probably shouldn't, but let's do it.
And the third thing I'd say to you is we just clearly haven't got the appropriate consequences in place for serious offending like we're seeing here as well. There has to be consequences, youth offending consequences. We know where the consequences of this actually is for them for the rest of their life. Really it's about making sure we've got appropriate consequences. No consequences. We have to have consequences. Consequences as a result. Consequences of crime. Consequences.
Clear set of consequences.
Consequences. And that's what we're saying here, to just enforce some consequences and actually make sure you know where your young person is and that you're actually getting them to school.
I had to stop counting because I've got socks on, and it would have just taken too long.
So we're not hearing about the squeezed middle anymore, but can anyone pick up the new buzzwords and talking points from National, perhaps? Can anyone see that?
I like the subtle threat towards parents as well.
Yeah.
We're
coming for your parents.
It's all in the fucking grab bag. He's going to talk about finding parents next, or
Brad saw it.
Yeah.
You guys are so smart. See, I thought I cut that together, edited it quite subtly. I didn't think anyone would pick up on it, but well done. Well done, yeah. Well done.
Oh, this is a reference for me. Goldsmith is Starscream to Luxon's Megatron. Yes.
Megatron, that's those things that fold up, aren't they? Transformers?
Yeah,
is that Megatron?
Yes. Yeah, that's for my generation, Pat, not your one.
Yeah. Shut up, Dick. Okay, so look, if he keeps saying it, and look, to be fair, if Labor says it as well, if they put out bullshit stuff, we'll point it out as well. But at the moment, it's like it seems that the river of diarrhea is coming from one particular area. And I'm not saying that Labor's golden and all good, but it seems that at the moment it's just a river of horse shit coming out of National at the moment that can be picked apart like we've just done. Right, let me just finish by this. Sorry, Cherry, I've got one more thing because we didn't come back to it. The numbers, yeah? Because remember, the other thing about these numbers that we're talking about, do you notice that the worst attendance for students, so it's sequential, all seem to be during COVID. But if you go back before COVID, so this is term 4, term 4 of 2019, the number of people attending more than 90% was 66%. So I think it's important for us to remember, and you can see that there's other terms, 57% there in the 60s. So mid 50s to mid 60s or high 60s seems to be about the norm, right? So it's never 100%. And I think it's important for us to remember that while we all acknowledge that 46% is fucking low, it's low. It's not as if it's normally 99 or 100. It's normally between, let's say, mid 50s and high 60s. So that means the 46% is probably 20%, which I'm not saying is okay, but 20% of a regular number, not 55% of a regular number, which I think, I'm not saying Mr. Luxon's actively pushing that it is, but what I'm saying is, so we know it's probably 20% lower than the norm, not 50% lower than the norm. So, and look, I'll say it again. Well, I won't even say Mr. Luxon. If politicians keep bullshitting, we'll keep pointing it out. Don't care where you're from, what you do, what party you are. If you're bullshitting and we can see it, we will point it out. Chewy, yours, my friend.
I have no problem with, obviously in politics there's different sides to the same coin. There's ideological differences. That is absolutely a-okay. But the moment that you start fucking just lying, you can call it anything you want, but if he's taking stats and just completely misreading them, and putting them out there as the gospel fact, and then drawing this correlation between these things, he can get in the sea, and I think this is just, again, it's his inexperience. He has no experience in any of these things that he's talking to. He hasn't gone out into any youth justice facilities. He hasn't talked to cops on the front line. I'm sure of it. He's just like, we're just going to get out the drum. Paul Goldsmith, bang on that drum. Soft on crime, bad at the economy. Labor.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other thing is, when you look at the economy, typically after a Labor government, it probably won't be the case this time, and not to defend the current government, but because of COVID, it's extenuating circumstances. But normally after a Labor government, you're left with surpluses and a healthy economy, and then after National, it's the other way around. Normally, maybe we should do that one night. You know how much I love my numbers. I'll go and have a look at the GDP and the debt and the surplus at the end of all the bands of governments for the last 20 years, and we'll see what we come up with.
Yeah. Underfund public services, lose an election, blame the new government for the state of the public services.
Yeah.
And then they spend 2 terms doing the back up again. And then we forget about that. And then we elect the other guys and they come in and sell everything. It's like night follows day. Do you want to hear this?
Yeah, man. I haven't seen any of this. Let's get into it.
Serious repeat offenders,
escalating consequences as well, right?
Just to clarify on this though, do serious repeat offenders, do they deserve the bespoke and the targeted wraparound help, or do they only deserve jail time?
There's a series of escalations, right? I mean, it ranges from programs like this, consultation and engagement, get it, that's great. But it should also range right through to using youth residential facilities for serious offenders. There has to be some consequences, because let's be clear, what this government's doing isn't working. It's not working. I mean, ram raids are up 500%, violent crime up 21%, retail crime up 31%.
Does jail work though?
Not working.
Youth crime is down overall nationwide.
But it's just,
but we'll ignore that.
Maybe it's because we're in the weeds, Chewy. But it's like, I watched News Hub this morning, like online. And it's the same script, and I understand they've got a message to get out there, but I mean, look, I'll be honest with you. At some stage, I used to think, getting into politics might be interesting, to try and make a difference, that kind of stuff. I don't think I could do it. Like, one of the reasons I didn't like I love doing theatre sports. So I worked for Theatre Sports Auckland for a decade, and I loved it because literally every night on stage was different. I found doing theatre more difficult because I got a bit bored saying the same thing every single night. I mean, I still did a fair bit, but I got a bit bored with it. I kind of feel like being a politician, you'd feel like you're just on stage the whole time with the same script. It must be boring as shit.
Yeah, especially the way that he's doing it. He's about to walk into Susie Fergusson's trap.
Okay, with you.
Well, what this government's doing isn't working, and they're sending a message to say they're soft on crime.
But is jail working?
There are no consequences.
Is jail working?
What I'd say to you is it's entirely appropriate that we have a series of escalating consequences and that people feel consequences.
Just
the victims
on rails
here are shop owners who have worked incredibly hard.
To be clear, Mr. Luxon, you have said this already. So jail does work in your view. That is maybe not the end goal, but it's the end circumstance, and it works.
So we're in a perverse situation. We've got 4,000 less prisoners in jail at the moment. That would be great if crime was down. The reality is crime is up across the board.
New Zealanders are not feeling safe in their own homes.
I thought crime was steadily falling.
No, let's go through the numbers. Violent crime up 21%. Retail crime up 31%. Gang membership over 40%. Recruiting twice as fast.
Again, we've
as police.
talked about that number.
Those aren't good outcomes, Susie. Here in Auckland, we wake up every week to ram raids and burglaries. Unacceptable. And here's the bit, right? The education minister, Chris, is probably going to go down as the worst education minister in New Zealand's history, cannot get kids to school and cannot deliver academic achievements. They're the two primary responsibilities of an education minister. So when you have 55% of our kids not at school regularly, when you have 100,000 kids
that's not
truant,
that's not the accurate figures on truancy. That's not the accurate. Those are not the accurate figures on truancy, Mr. Luxon. I've got the figures in front of me here.
Well, Susie, there's 46% of our kids going to school regularly. There's 100,000 chronically truant.
No, attendance is running at 83%. That's the
like
latest figure.
Okay, well, I can tell you right now.
Unjustified absence, term 1, 2022 is 6.6%. Your figures are incorrect.
Let's go from term 4 to term 1, from 60% down to 46% in regular attendance. And we have over 100,000 kids chronically truant, meaning they're not at school 7 days or more.
Well, those don't appear to be the figures that we have here that I understand are accurate.
When Susie says that she has the figures in front of her,
well, she was looking at what I had. What I had was from the ministry.
So you were walking into a trap.
This is what she was looking at. I mean, I hadn't heard that yet, but this is what she was looking at because I have the numbers in front of me too.
Literally what we were looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. So there it is right there. But there it is.
But
that's exactly what she read. Unjustified absence is 6.4%. That's what she said. There's the number right there. So that's what she's looking at. And this is from the ministry. It's over here, I think. This is the contents for attendance, daily data, student attendance, national 2011 all the way through to 2022. So what she was looking at was what I was talking about earlier by chance. That means me and Susie are the same. I mean, it must be as good as Susie. So that's what she's looking at. And that's the other thing about being present for the half days, 84.5%, even in that same period. But I was just using his numbers to then show another aspect of what it is now as well.
Luxon cannot be pushed off his talking point railroad. And that is A, great for sound bites, but B, absolutely dreadful if someone's got better knowledge of what you're talking about than you do.
Yeah.
And God help him when it comes to, well, if he makes it, to the election debates.
You really think that he might make it all the way through? Like you actually think that? I don't. I think he's there, no question. But you actually think he might not make it to the election?
Well, I thought Judith Collins would be there till the end.
Fair,
because you know she was just going to dig in like a tick, and you know she had her own sort of backers and that sort of thing. She had Christian Slater's obviously friendship, you know, all of that sort of stuff. I didn't think anybody would get rid of her, and she Gomberger. So I don't know. He's performing really badly, and he keeps on having bad polls, and you know, they've gone through a lot of leaders, but so did Labour.
Yeah,
going into a win. So I think somebody will think, oh, maybe it's my turn. We can just get another bald white guy in there, and things will change right before the election.
Oh, so that's like playing Guess Who. We should get the national. Oh fuck! We should make a national party Guess Who.
Yeah, it's impossible. You can't.
But you'd have to go. Oh no, you'd have to go. Are they white? Yes. Ah shit. No one to put down. Are they bald? Yes. Ah shit. 80% of them still got to stay up. Oh fuck! Someone do that.
Is it a blue
somebody do that. Look, can I also say I'm a little bit apologetic, although I love seeing you guys talking to each other in the chat. But the chat's gone ballistic tonight. Like I've highlighted 11. And there's about another 50 to get through. So can we do this super quick? Is that all right?
Yeah, go for it.
Weaving House wants to know if we'll meet at Wolf for a beer for $50. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, just come and sign the Patreon. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should do a Patreon for Dunedin people as well and do like a monthly meetup or something. That's an idea. Thought. Adam, I'm going to whip through these because there's a lot of them. Adam says, yeah, Luxon was on fire in a bad way this morning because RNZ. He even needs to get a bit angry. Eggs do crack. And then Kim says that straight away. Politikiwi, the Weaving House, bugger me. If you're paying 50, does that mean drinks at Wolf for $50 at Wolf now? That's a cost of living crisis right there. Julie says Luxon doesn't have any actual policies, so he has to conjure up some boogeyman. Tiger says, had a nosy at a YouTube clip of our mate on the platform. The people in the comments definitely seem to be leaning in a certain direction. Yeah, we've been saying that for 2 months now. His dilemma over at the platform is he's going to either have to court the right-wing conspiracy theorists and fleece them for money, or he's going to have to, someone just signed up to Patreon. Nice, thank you. Or he's going to have to take a more nuanced position, which is he is more nuanced than that. Or he's gonna, when business mummy and daddy's money runs out, he's going to be screwed. So I think it's actually out of his hands now. I think that's the way he has to go if he wants to survive financially. Carl, who is one of our patrons, you beautiful man. The question is why media let Luxon get away with his blatant lies. Yes, it's a very good question. Oh, well, they don't all. We just heard Susie. Yeah, so there you go. It can't be clicks because tearing down falsehoods are more likely to go viral and drive algorithm. Simon says, surprised me if ACT wouldn't get rid of child labor laws to make productivity.
They got the small hands for the machines.
Rose says, tie the pathway, punish the amount of remorse shown. No remorse, then don't take the softly pathway. You just fix the truancy and it'll magically fix ram raids. Georgia, how we got that? Geo, yeah. Geo, J is a yeah.
Georgia.
Oh, Georgia. Fair. Lovely. OMG, you nailed it. Thank goodness for a sane analysis of this. I lost my voice yelling at the TV. Well done, guys.
I know that feeling. Yeah.
And look, the text is going bananas after that as well. So I'm just going to have a look at my email because someone, what did I just do there? I have to now. How do I take this down? Oh, hide current comment. There we go. Someone just signed up to the Patreon and I want to say thank you to them. Gareth Edwards, thank you, sir. Just signed up. While I'm here, why don't I say hello to Pat Sellers and thank you for signing up to our Patreon. To S. Pierce, thank you for signing up to our Patreon. We appreciate you guys. And there are some others whose emails I don't have, but I can go to the actual Patreon and say this.
Oh, there's a complaint about our Patreon.
Oh, dear. What did
Appreciate
it say?
the content, BHN, but I'm disappointed having signed up to find that Patreon does not, in fact, deliver me any tequila.
Well, we could do if you come along to WOF. And Stephen Booth and Simple Reality and Carl are all signed up in the last 24 hours. It's just a few people. Not that we don't appreciate just a few people. It's fantastic. Thank you for being involved because, this is how we're going to. Where's the Patreon back? Says Rob. Have a look at the bottom of your screen, Rob. It's been scrolling for hours. In fact, we'll leave it scrolling for the next 24. Just big hearing news on Patreon. All right, I'm not a hard sell guy, so I think that's us with the Patreon for today. Hey, we've got other things to talk about. Are we finished here? I don't know. I'm okay not to be finished, but
no, I think we've spent like 80% of the show saying that Luxon doesn't know numbers. Yeah.
We've been talking for 40 minutes about this bullshit.
Not knowing how numbers work. Yeah, it's going to be a long election cycle.
Rob, if you can't find it or you can't look at it, just follow me on Twitter. I put a tweet out today. It had a video on it. Have you seen the video, Chewy?
I haven't seen the video.
No, there was a video I put out on Twitter. Oh, you haven't seen it? I'll show you. I'll show you the video I put out on Twitter.
I saw the consequences one.
Oh, no. There was this little video I put out on Twitter, and in the bottom. But the point I was trying to say is at the bottom of this video, there was the link to the Patreon. So if you haven't seen this, I'll just put this out there for you. Just in case you haven't seen it.
And the third thing I'd say to you is we just clearly haven't got the appropriate consequences in place for serious offending like we're seeing here as well. There has to be consequences, youth offending consequences. We know where the consequences of this actually is for them for the rest of their life. Really it's about making sure we've got appropriate consequences, consequences. We have to have consequences. Consequences as a result, consequences of crime, consequences. Clear set of consequences. And that's what we're saying here, to just enforce some consequences and actually make sure you know where your young person is and that you're actually getting them to school.
And remember, that was all within 9 minutes of a media scrum, all of those. But then again, you heard it with Susie. Well, did he say it 5 times when Susie was talking in that 3 minutes? So, is what it is. All right, team. Yes. let's not be unfair to Mr. Luxon, and let's just say it this way: if politicians continue to lie to us, we will continue to point it out to you. That includes those on the left, right? If they lie to us, we will point it out to you, right? And we will keep doing that all the time. I can't not read comments as they come in, all the way up to the election.
We'll put a fat beat to it. Ride that for the next 8 months.
Let's have a look at the election, because this actually there's a little bit of Mr. Luxon in this one as well. So this is on our old mate Calvin Morgan's Twitter feed. One of the more interesting things about this is what Brian Tamaki actually has to say about the number of witnesses that are going to be speaking, I guess, would you say, against him for the accusers in his upcoming trial. Have a bit of a listen.
They don't want me to face a trial or a judge. They got 23 witnesses against me.
Did you hear that? In case it was unclear to you, or if you're on audio, 23 witnesses against me is what he said. 23 witnesses against. Now, everyone has the right to due process. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty. But if there are 23 witnesses that the prosecution is going to use against someone, I would say, without knowing the circumstances, it's not a good sign.
So this is the trial for him, like organizing those marches when he was told not to, right?
All that stuff, yeah.
Why do you even need witnesses? He was there. We saw it.
Or maybe
Straight
it's also
to jail.
but maybe it's also
there's got to be consequences. There's got to be consequences.
Do you know the thing
too
about
old for a youth justice home?
Maybe an
straight to
ankle
jail.
bracelet. I wonder if this is the thing I quite like about politicians speaking out, and I said this of Labour last week, is that at some stage Mr. Luxon will be challenged on something that he has done or said or within his party that there has been no consequences for. I guarantee you that will happen in the lead up to the election. Let's get to the end of this this super stud and just hear what he's got to say.
That means they want to shut my voice up in the next 12 months.
They want to shut my voice up in the next 12 months. I know that to
So
be the
I
case.
fight hard to stop that until at least this gets strong and gets going.
So Mr. Tamaki's position is there's 23 witnesses against me, and the reason that's the case is because they want to shut my voice down. The other thing I wanted to mention about Brian Tamaki was he when Christopher Luxon ruled them out from working with him, he wrote a blog post or released a press release or something. He was speaking after Mr. Luxon spoke to Newstalk ZB. Mr. Luxon said this: what I've tried to say consistently is I've got nothing in common with Tamaki. This gets quite funny, actually. I've got nothing in common with Tamaki. I think they're crazy. I don't think they're serious. I don't think they're going to make it. It'd be funny if they did make it. I wonder if he'd be having a different tune. Don't think they're going to make it. And you saw that coalition fall apart, and I said, read between the lines. If it helps, Mike, I am very happy to give you a Mike Hosking exclusive and rule out Tamaki and never work with him. But I just want us to get back to focus on the big issues because this country is in trouble. Brian Tamaki's response when he was he wrote a piece questioning Luxon using the word crazy. They are crazy? Wow. Who are they? Is it the tens of thousands of people pictured below? Tamaki wrote, attaching images of various protests he's led in cities and all over Auckland's Harbour Bridge. Those tens of thousands of people are mostly the same people in every protest, just so you know. Like, just because you've got to
tens of thousands.
Well, no, but you've probably got 2,000 at each one, and they're at 5 different events, but they're the same 2,000 people. Tamaki, this is the bit that Mr. Luxon won't be that happy about. Tamaki refuted Luxon's comment that the pair have nothing in common. So he compiled a list. So Brian Tamaki is going, actually, we've got quite a lot in common. It's the kind of press Mr. Luxon doesn't want. He pointed to being Christian, to being hardworking, and once a national voter as some common themes. Not finished. He went on to add Luxon should have plenty in common if, quote, he actually gives a damn about Kiwis by calling all of the above crazy and writing us all off, saying he will never work with us. He is writing off votes from the above, emboldening the vote towards Freedom's New Zealand, and signing National's policy death warrant. Tamaki went further and warned Labour and National of Freedom New Zealand's political arrival. So get ready. Here comes the Kingmaker. I don't want to read any more of that. I'm done with him. But so, Mr. Tamaki is now actively working to tell people that he's quite like Christopher Luxon. And Christopher Luxon's going, oh, no, nothing with me. I don't know who he is. What are you talking about? No, we're nothing alike. And Brian Tamaki's going, yeah, we're quite alike.
Brian Tamaki trying to get into politics. Have you ever done something for 20 years and just failed at it every step and you just keep doing it? Like, that's literally the definition of insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. His Umbrella Academy isn't going to get it again. Yeah. Hilarious.
Oh, sorry. That was playing in the background.
I thought we were going to get the Consequences remix again.
Well, I actually thought, in all honesty now, that there's a bit of a sensitive conversation coming up next. And I do actually kind of think that from the mirth and slight silliness of our conversation now, that maybe we should have a little break. And I'm not taking the piss for the next conversation. I'm actually more literally wanting to put a bit of a between the two conversations. So I've got something that maybe we can put between the two conversations. Just something to put between two conversations.
Oh, God damn it. No.
The third thing I'd say to you is we just clearly haven't got the appropriate consequences in place for serious offending, like we're seeing here as well. There has to be consequences, youth offending consequences. We know where the consequences of this actually is for them for the rest of their life. Really, it's about making sure we've got appropriate consequences. We have to have consequences as a result, consequences of crime, consequences, clear set of consequences, and that's what we're saying here. Just enforce some consequences and actually make sure you know where your young person is and that you're actually getting them to school.
Oh my God.
Okay, I'm closing it. I'm pushing close. Yep. It's now closed.
Just delete it. It's done now. It's done. No, of course you're not.
I'm actually being chastised by other people now as well. Consequences for running my show like that. And what I'm actually doing is, and I started experiencing it when I was listening to everyone watching. When they hear Mr. Luxon next time, they are going to be kind of go crazy, like cruel and unusual punishment. And then there's always one sadist in the crowd, isn't there? There's always one.
Please, sir, may I have another?
People will now hear him speaking, and every time they hear the word consequences, they will think of that clip. And Adam's got the last say on this. If the internet ever goes out again, can we just have that on repeat for 1 hour? Yes.
Is that that sounds like a murder-suicide pact?
Yes. No, I don't know if you know, but we didn't have a show on Monday night, Joey. It was a weird internet problem.
I didn't see that.
Which is all fixed, actually. So the guys from Chorus turned up this morning, first thing. Kudos to them. They got into my box and had a bit of a shuffle around, and outside was fine. Came inside, opened up the ONT box, and apparently it needed a bit of a clean. I don't know what it all means. It wasn't to do with the speed. The speed wasn't impacted, but the reliability was, and it was sitting on -13, and that's really bad. No, it was on negative. I can't remember which way it was, and now it's at -30, which apparently is really good. So that's what it was. That's why it was kind of coming on and off. It was an intermittent fault, and we're solid again. You know what Murphy's law says? Hang on, touch wood. Will drop in about 60 seconds. That's normally all right, guys. Well, thanks for being with us so far. We're going to move into another conversation now. It's to do with Sophie Elliott. I mean, everybody knows Sophie Elliott. Everyone knows the horrific story around Sophie Elliott. It has a bit of a extra kind of poignant place to play within the Dunedin culture, because Otago University is where this was all surrounded by. I think the actual murder happened in Christchurch from memory, but I think they were both.
No, it happened here.
I was in Dunedin as well.
I actually worked with Sophie around that time.
Wasn't aware of that,
yeah, she worked with me at Blockbuster South Dunedin. So Yeah, very aware of the circumstances that led up to it. But yeah, she was about to leave Dunedin and go up and work in government like the next week, basically.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I don't want to. That's why this is a sensitive conversation, and we're being sensitive and serious with it. Sophie Elliott's father has come out today talking about, I guess, talking about how to protect any future Sophie Elliott's from having that happen to them again. I mean, you can never stop everything, but putting things in place to help it. So let's have a listen to the idea that I think they're going to tell us from memory has been introduced already at Victoria University, but Sophie Elliott's dad's come out going, this needs to be everywhere.
Photos of Sophie Elliott have fueled her father's fire to fight for a ban on staff and student relationships for more than a decade.
That particular picture there, a week later she was dead.
Killed in 2008 by her then tutor Clayton Weatherston, who she was in a relationship with while studying at the University of Otago. Now, those types of relationships are banned at Wellington's Victoria University. Sophie's father has a message for other tertiary institutions.
And I think they should follow suit as soon as possible.
Victoria University is the first in New Zealand to introduce the policy.
If there is a professional relationship, it is not appropriate that there is also a personal relationship. Like any other professional relationship, doctor-patient.
Other universities discourage relationships, but Gil Elliott wants them to go a step further.
Discouraged is a bit of an iffy sort of word, to be perfectly honest. I mean, people might say to themselves, well, they discourage it, but who cares? I'm still going to do it.
The University of Otago, Waikato, Massey, Auckland and Canterbury all confirmed its policies are under general review. Lincoln says its policy is under constant review, while AUT is looking at Victoria's approach to see if there are ways it can improve its own processes. The Education Minister has backed the policy change.
And that's ultimately a matter for the universities. They have institutional autonomy around how they approach that. I think the policy that Victoria University has set out, though, is a very sensible one.
I think it's about time that universities caught up, and Victoria is definitely doing that.
Hoping to eliminate any power imbalance in and out of the classroom.
Right. So that's the conversation. And obviously, because it's a very real world example, I think most of us would immediately go, great idea. That's what we should do. Imbalance in power, we should eliminate it. I mean, I guess it's sort of similar to, you know, like a boss and a junior worker. Imbalance in power, a place for the junior in the situation to be in a dangerous situation.
Well, now, as the person from Victoria said, doctor patient.
Yeah. She also talked about if it's a professional relationship. So that also raises the question, like, let's say you're in the humanities department. Would you be able to date a lecturer who is in, I don't know, for law, not a professional relationship, but our staff and student? And look, I know, for example, I mean, our boy George, you know, our friend George works as a tutor at university. He's a young fella. I mean, where would he come into the conversation of no relationship whatsoever? Because on one level, it's a awkward, and I don't mean awkward in a bad way. I'm not trying to minimize it, but a difficult conversation, because there's a real world example, and I didn't know this, Chewy, but a real world example of someone that knew on some level, even if it was just through work sort of thing. But there's also then the application of that to everybody else. And if you have a blanket ban, like what happened? Like, could it be a blanket ban if you're under 25? Like, university has this line of 25 years old. Like, you can't get an adult allowance until you're either independent or above 25 years old. Could you imagine, like, if I went back to university, which I've always wanted to do, actually go and study film, will that apply to me as well? Maybe, maybe not. What am I? I'm in my early 30s, I think, right now. Is that about right? So I think it's an interesting conversation starter. I think it's a difficult one to have a hard line on because of the Sophie Elliott example. But I just sort of throw it out there and see what people thought, and see what you thought, Chewy. Because I'll be honest with you, I hear the Sophie Elliott story and I go, absolutely. Then I stop and think about applying that to 100,000 university students. There's more than that, because I think there's 20,000 down here and 25,000 in Auckland. So 150,000 university students over the country. Is it something that's amongst consenting adults, something that we should definitely do? And I'm still kind of going, well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, but think about a lot of the population at university. Let's use your yardstick. They're under 25.
Sure.
First time out from home. The learning environment is vastly different from secondary school that they've come from.
Yep.
You know, it can be, you know, the high stress environment as well. You know, it's pretty fast and loose, and I think when there isn't any, I'm gonna say the goddamn word, if there aren't any consequences,
good use
you
of
know,
the word.
that's the thing. Like, you know, is it going to stop all relationships? Probably not. But by Christ, it raises the bar. You know, oh, I shouldn't do this because it'll cost me my job. You know.
Yeah, I mean, are there other ways around it? Is there like you know, you see the old adage, my kids are addicted to The Office and they watch the American Office. They've watched it like 6 times in a row. And I happened to walk in on the episode the other night where Jim and Pam had to go to the HR guy and tell them that they were in a relationship. Is that another?
I was just
another
thinking
option?
about that actually, and Politikiwi in the chat has had exactly the same idea. Like, if you're going to have a relationship, it has to be out in the light, sort of thing, and you have to go in front of a board of review to say, look, it's a real relationship, and it's everybody knows about it now, and you know, if we come back to Sophie's situation, would it have helped?
Yeah, well, let's also think
it would have.
Let's also just add to this conversation that when we as a society have decided that at 18-year-olds you can do everything, like drinking age when I was 20, right? Before me, my kind of uncles or parents was 21. And we've made a decision that at 18-year-old now in society, you can do everything. So it does still raise that question that why should you stop an 18-year-old dating their 25-year-old tutor? Now, again, because there's a Sophie Elliott example, I don't want to get caught up in the horrific nature of that, but I also want to be real about it and talk about that. I mean, could there be something instigated that you like over 21, you can do what you want. You know what I mean? Have a relationship. Under 21, you can't. I wonder as well how it will be implemented. Not to try and, I'm not defending obviously those who are in the power position, but I'm just wondering reality. How do you tell a group of people you're fully adult, you're completely responsible for yourself, but stay away from that guy? Yeah, I'm just wondering how that works.
I mean, there's so many predators out there, and they will jump on that power imbalance. They will jump on the fact that it's kind of romantic and forbidden and all of this sort of stuff. So yeah, maybe it is, instead of driving it underground, bring it more into the light. Like, if you're going to have, like, you can kind of have it both ways. If you have an illicit relationship with a student, cool, you've just cost yourself a job. Get the fuck out.
Look, sorry, I've just actually come, as I'm thinking about you, I've come up with the answer to my own quandary. You don't put it on the students, you put it on the teachers. So in other words, that you can't tell the 18-year-old, you can't have a relationship with the 25-year-old tutor, but you can tell the tutor as a part of your employment, if you do, you're gone. So that's the answer to my own question, is you put it on the tutors and you make it a condition of their employment.
That really, like, in my mind, I was thinking the consequences are all, like, we're talking about a power imbalance. So the consequences have to be on the person with the power. But we didn't specifically say that. So it's a good clarification.
I was just thinking it out. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that whole thing of, like, if it's a relationship that's worth it, you know, and you're confident enough to bring it in front of a board of review and get it signed off by the university and everybody's happy, cool. Everybody knows about it now. If it's illicit and you're risking it, well, cool, your job's on the line as well. So
let's throw a few of these out there, eh? Because I said to people, you come and chat about it. It's actually, we did this last week with Louis C.K. You know, it's quite good to have this sort of debatey conversation towards the end of the show, and then people can pick up on it. I mean, if we were well organized, we could have fired up the blooming Discord, but I haven't done that yet. Bradley says, tough one. Definitely agree, it should happen, but how do you stop it? Can you? I just don't know. Kim says 100% agree, and then Kim says no professional and personal relationship. Yeah, and that again comes to that thing about, you know, if the tutor's in humanities but you're a student in law, is that okay? because there's no professional thing. Whereas if it was just written into the contracts of every staff member, and then maybe like my silly example, but it's just me kind of going through all the scenarios of, you know, if you're a 25-year-old and you're married to a 28-year-old and that 28-year-old is a university lecturer and you go to that university, then that's the example that goes to HR going, just so you know, this is the, you know, that's the exception to the rule, which would have to be written in there as well. Politically says, I think the ban is a good idea, but it does run the risk of pushing them underground. Perhaps the alternative is to allow such relationships, but hold scrutiny and explicit guidelines. No easy answers. Another one from Bradley. It would cause worse stigma and increase the power dynamic issue. Okay. Weaving House says it will definitely damper predation, which is sort of what you've been saying as well. Student confessional pages have always talked about sleeping with lecturers pretty regularly, how the Law Student Society plays up on how cute some lecturers are in a playful manner. It's hard to cut back now. Yeah, there's more coming in there as well. Ro, I don't know, Rose just asking, when you say guys, if you're asking everyone in the chat that Ro or whatever, how did you meet your partners? Was it in the workplace? Was there a power imbalance? I guess I'll tell my story. I've had I guess 3 sort of long-term partners. I mean, you know, short-term in between, but like 8-year, 16-year, 5-year sort of thing. One was mutual friends. One was at university. We were both students, and one was swipe left, swipe right. So that's how I met my partners. And no, so there was no power imbalance there at all, other than a spectacular catch. You know, other than that, of course, but.
Yeah, like I didn't meet any of my partners in the workplace or anything like that, so I don't have a yardstick to measure there, but I've certainly seen friends fall into, you know, relationships in the workplace. That's never great. And I not only, apart from Sophie, I can think of one other person that fell into a power imbalance so bad that it was borderline abusive. Right. So yeah, I mean, it can happen. Actually, now that I think about it, that one was around the university space as well, up in actually it was Victoria. So that's cool. But yeah, I think having no yardstick, no guidelines, no enforcement is definitely not the right way to do it. I think a blanket ban, yeah, I think the more that I think about it, the more that would drive things underground. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But just having it out where people can see it and it be a known thing, and it just raises that bar, that risk versus, yeah, actually this is something serious enough that I want to take in front of my employer. It's a real thing.
Very cool. Hey, we're going to wrap up in a second, but I want to say thanks very much to Kim and thanks very much to Rob, 2 new Patreons who have just signed up, or patrons, I should say, who have just signed up tonight.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks. We appreciate that. If you are interested in becoming one of our patrons, then I'm just trying to look at my page as the public, like that. When I see public, no, I can't say that tonight because we just had a genuinely interesting and serious conversation. So I won't make a joke now. A big hero news, weeknights at 10 p.m. There are 6 levels of membership there. I'll just tell you as well, those of you who have signed up, because I think everyone kind of bar one has signed up to this one here as well. One of the things we're going to be doing is we are going to be doing like a monthly members only private chat. So either behind a paywall, or we'll send you a link and people can jump on and just have a general chit chat with us. I think we're going to drop that down. See, they're here at the $50 per month. It's a live exclusive private group chat with host or hosts as a part of it. We'll probably drop that down to some of these earlier ones, maybe the $35 one as well. So yeah, but we appreciate everyone coming on board. If you want to come on board, we're happy to have you. If you want to get into the upper echelons, there's some merch and stuff to give away as well. And other than that, just thank you for you guys being involved. I will reply to everyone by the end of the week, like after Friday. I'll let everyone know. Oh, and speaking of Friday, I have had a conversation on the phone with Chantel Baker, and we did talk about trying to do something at the end of this week. So that may end up being Friday night's episode. We haven't talked since last week. It might be too late to organise something for this week, but we will have that conversation at some stage. I know I've been talking about it a bit in the last couple of weeks, but Chantel seems keen to catch up and have a chat, and so that will be happening as well. Maybe this Friday. If not this Friday, maybe next week, I think. Carl says that our teas are fire. This is the one I like. These are a bit more exclusive, these ones, because this is
they're not
Otago.
actually like legally. They're not that flammable.
That's because this is the Otago colours. So, but there's not as many as those. And yeah, we will do some of that stuff. All right. Hey, thanks for joining us tonight. Anything you want to leave us with, Chewmeister General?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah. Well, it's very good to be with all you again tonight. And I guess we will see you all tomorrow night from 10 p.m. As I said, we've got a fantastic person who's come on board, Ivan, and he has said to us, as a part of his cohort towards what we're doing, he's going to help us develop a website. So I'm not going to talk too much about the website yet, but there are some plans of making it pretty interactive and as much as we can full of good information as well. We want that to be a bit of a hub for you guys to come to and be involved with. And there's a possibility you might see that this month. If not this month, though, I'm sure early next month you will see it, probably just in time for me taking a week off. We'll do like a 1 hour. We could do that. We could actually that week off. I could just play that clip over and over again. The consequences clip for an hour every night for 5
We'd have to
nights.
have an anti-Patreon. No, we'll turn it into like, if you donate at the $35 tier, we'll stop it.
Oh my God. That's such a good idea. Such a good idea. All right, team. Hey, love you to bits, everybody. Thank you for coming on board. Thank you to everyone for saying good night to us. That's lovely in the chats as well. And we will talk to you next. Oh, and one more thing, actually, just about that. I'm going to show you one more thing. Sorry, I'm just going to, not the hard sell, but just to explain. This whole Patreon thing, you can get a t-shirt and a cap for $100 a month. Now, if you join up for 1 month, you will get the t-shirt and the cap. And there's a donation on top. Obviously, we have to pay for the t-shirt and the cap. But then you could always drop down to a smaller amount, so because you can change as you're doing it as well. So just for people in the chat who are saying that t-shirt is fire and that sort of stuff, if you're interested, come join the Patreon, do it for a month on that level, and then drop down to a different level, and sweet as nut. Cool bananas? Cool bananas. Nice. All right, Chewy. Thank you, sir. And thank you everyone for joining us. And we'll be back tomorrow night from 10 p.m. for another edition of Big Hairy Nads on the Big Hairy Night in Big Hairy News. Hooroo.